Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Assets and Infrastructure Committee meeting. And to all of those that are online, welcome as well. Hope everyone's had a good and restful Easter. Apologies. Do we have any apologies?
Or do you have an apology from Councillor Linford, I think, Believers?
She's just right.
There we go.
Oh, you don't have an apology.
That's fine. Well, that's good. We've got a full contingency. Any declarations of interest? No. No worries. Okay, let's move on to the confirmation of our minutes.
So moved.
Anyone else seconded? Councillor Holding. Well, that was very quick. Let's move through on to our first paper. Oh, sorry. Apologies. I need to put that to the vote. My apologies. All of those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. I'm gathering anything that was confidential we do in that area. Okay, on to our first report. Sorry, just finding my way. Smart water metering trial. Hand over to you, Paul, Mr. Hayes, to introduce that, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, you've got the paper, so I'll take it as read, but just to frame it, you'll be aware that through the discussion on the water services delivery plan, metering was something that we talked about quite a lot. And as part of the deliberations, we actually pulled some money forward from what was at the end of the LTP period, so we could implement the smart water metering a little bit earlier. This paper is really just intended to give a bit of an update on what we've done and sort of discuss the way forward. So there was $100,000 allocated for making some progress in this financial year. We have run a request for information process, so canvass industry essentially to see what is out there. Had a really good response to that, a large number of responses, complicated a little bit by the fact that there's a lot of, I guess, consortium. And so we'd get the same feedback or same information from a single supplier via multiple proposals. And what was really interesting was just the wide array of services out there. Everything from install the meter and you do everything yourself through to metering as a service where for a monthly fee, an external company does everything for you. So through the process, we're able to canvass industry, get some really good guidance in terms of what's out there and the basis for developing a multi-criteria analysis in the future as part of a procurement process. What's changed a little bit through the process is our direction with going through Southern Waters. And so we've come to the conclusion that the wisest use of our time and energy at the moment is to defer any future decision on smart watering to Southern Waters. The reason for that is each of the four councils is in a different position in terms of its metering journey. None are at the universal smart water metering stage. And as a new entity, the most logical thing for Southern Waters to want to do is to do an entity-wide procurement process, in which you start getting some of the benefits of economies of scale that we've been talking about, and also so you end up with just a single platform and a single mechanism for billing across the organisation. So purpose of this paper was just to update you on what we've done, provide a little bit of information in terms of what we've collected, and recommending or our action is to defer the future work to Southern Waters. So happy to take any questions on that if there are any.
Thank you. Yeah, look, yeah, sorry, Tevenda.
It's all right. You're allowed to have your say too. Just a couple of questions I have, because I think, framing wise, I'm quite comfortable with what you're saying, because it makes a lot of sense to try and get those procurement savings through there. But when it comes to our water services delivery plan and the timeframes expected by central government and sort of in the water loss space and when our upgrades are due, all that kind of picture together, how does that affect our timeframes, and do you think that's going to put us on the back foot when it comes to meeting the government requirements, whether us or Southern Water, down the track?
Yes, I guess firstly, I'm fully convinced that this is the way to go, and there's huge benefits to be gained by universal water metering and the benefits of smart water metering in terms of leak detection, both on the private side and the public side. As I said, there was $100,000 allocated this year. What we'd initially thought was running a trial with that based in Kurau, which already has metering, so it would be a relatively straightforward exercise to install the smart water meters. But we started looking at what would be the value, what would we gain from that? Maybe we'd gain local proof that smart watering works. But there's a growing evidence across New Zealand that smart water metering works. So it wouldn't really advance our business case. There may have been some benefit in terms of linking it to procurement, but because we're disconnected now from the procurement process, it didn't make much sense either. So I think it's something that Southern Waters would pick up very early on. And we've still got funding available through the water service or the draft water services delivery plan, and the procurement could be kicked off early, but in an organisational wide context rather than us doing something in isolation.
Just through this year, and I assume these conversations we've been having with Southern Water through this as well, so they're aware of what we're not doing or doing.
We've just had very initial conversations at this stage. I've obviously got a lot of things going on. This isn't quite at the top of their priority at the moment.
Yeah, Paul, a couple of questions on pages 9 and 10. On page 9, you've got connection types and estimated costings. How likely is it that those figures you're providing? I mean, I noticed, for instance, that you're proposing or suggesting that installation of a commercial smart meter could cost as much as $7,143. Oddly enough, if you divide the 2022 connections, or sorry, if you divide the 14.4 million by the 2022 connections, my calculation was that it came out at 493. Oh, sorry, forget that, delete that entirely. That was a total number of connections, residential and commercial. So those figures there, 436 and 7143, how likely is it, do you think, that things would cost that much simply for connection? That's question number one.
So what I've tried to do here is just present the range of responses that came through the request for information process. So lower bound in the commercial meter was 1,158, upper bound was 7,143. Obviously, it depends on the size of the connection. How likely is it we'll have 2022 at the upper bound? Very, very unlikely. But this is really just presenting the wide range of information that was taken from the request for information process.
Okay, thanks. Just following on from that, and these are related. You say that there are other trials and we really don't need to bother. I'm wondering if you think, A, that there might be local idiosyncrasies, curiosities, particular characteristics of the area and the soil and other issues of that, well, not soil, environment generally. I'm wondering if there's if you see any merit in actually, a Waitaki specific trial. I wonder also, given we've got the 100,000, whether we've asked our Southern Waters Dunwell partners whether they would see any benefit in this, not only for us but for them. And I guess the other question in relation to their reference to the information you give us about their metering, I presume none of those 3 districts have smart meters. Is that correct?
In terms of your last question, I believe that is the case. But we haven't had any real in-depth discussions with the 3 partners in terms of where they're headed. I guess the challenge in terms of a trial, and it's probably worth noting that across the country, water organisations do tend to go on a staged approach where there's a progressive rollout and progressive proving of the technology. But the trials are always linked to a procurement process. And the difficulty in this case is we'd potentially be running a process at the moment which is disconnected from an organisational decision on procurement.
Yeah. Just one final question, Mr. Chair, if I may. I know you say the LTP funding for water metering isn't available at the moment until 2033-34. I don't know whether Paul or Roger want to answer this, but we could bring that forward should we choose. Is that correct?
Who wants to answer that one? Paul can answer that one. I would assume so, but
you could. It's whether we'd have the capacity to do anything about it. And that's the key discussion we've been having through some of the annual plan workshops, is that we're now at the stage where it's like you can get the money, but actually being able to do something with it is a separate issue.
John, Councillor McCann.
Yeah, thanks for this, Paul. I'll have a heap of questions, so if I lose you, I'll just do one at a time. But to me, I think you've identified the fault, and that's we don't know how much we're losing through the urban systems. So it's a bit like buying a very expensive bottle of single malt whiskey and thinking you're the first one in there, but someone's already taken half of it because it's already gone. So, if we identify that, that must surely reduce the running costs and the expense of actually producing that filtered water through a system. So I think that should be at the front of the page. That's a comment on that. Secondly, have I suppose associations with meters in another district. They're mechanical, they're simple, they're read by a contractor, and they just get on with the job. It's pretty simple. And if you leave the tap on, you pay, as I've been in a huge pocket, because you're responsible for the water after that meter. So it absolves all the bits and pieces that we are losing water through. So I think it's very prudent that this is done and done quickly. So thank you for this.
Councillor Slate.
Paul, just back on the industrial meter, so page 9, and that price difference between the commercial non-residential ones and the residential ones. Now, apart from size, I would imagine, any other really outlying points that say why they are so much more expensive than the residential ones?
As I said, this was just a summary of the information that we received. One of the things that makes it difficult to compare is we're not comparing apples with apples from the different requests for information. It's different companies with different offerings providing information about their systems. So some were providing, I guess, clip-ons to existing meters. Others were proposing brand new meters. Others were proposing mechanical meters. Oh, no, sorry, no one was proposing mechanical meters because we were specifically asking about smart meters. But just a complete range of services. So we didn't do a request for proposal, we did a request for information. So it was all about canvassing, getting all the information back, and having a strong base to prepare a request for proposal with a strong multi-criteria analysis behind it.
So really don't have any explanation as to why that amount per meter is so more expensive than the commercial, other than I would imagine size.
Yes, the size would be the main thing.
Okay, if I may, and just catching up with what Councillor McCone said. So, and I think you said it, but I'd just like to verify it. Most of these meters are actually mechanically, but the smart actually comes in how the data is gathered and transmitted to a single point.
Yeah, correct. So the meters we have are mechanical at the moment, and they require manual reading. So at the moment they're done on a quarterly basis, which I think is true for commercial as well. So read on a quarterly basis by our maintenance contractor. And so I've just lost the second part of the question.
The smart bit actually comes in reading the data from the actual meeting and transmitting it to one
Correct.
single database.
Correct. So there's a range of technologies from, I guess, if a drive past, you've got a unit sitting on a vehicle, drives past and just collects all the information as it goes, through to devices that are sending information on a daily basis or even more frequently. And also collecting information on a regular basis. With a mechanical meter, you get a point in time every time you read it, but the smart meters give you a profile of your water use.
Just acknowledging this is an inform only kind of paper, but I guess just touching on some of the points of Councillor McCone and Hopkins around the timeframes. I think that the rubber hits the road on this one when it comes to the procurement side of things, and what we need to do is to empower the entity to have the sizability through their procurement policy and line ourselves up for that. So I think while it's really important that we get that kind of metering space and understanding our usage and where our loss of water is on the table, it sits a whole lot better with the entity and it gives us those cost savings. And I think there's probably enough information that we've got enough upgrades and things to keep people busy in the interim, more than enough, that this makes a lot of sense. And I think what it does is just starts to actually put into play where those cost savings from us joining an entity actually hit the road, which is important. But thank you for bringing this information to us.
Yeah, look, sorry, sorry, Councillor Hopkins, I'd like to speak as well. But I just saying here that, you know, looking at this paper, for me, I can see the logic and the recommendation here to defer, because, you know, it needs undoing something if a wider entity should choose a different type of technology, considering what's in there. But I guess one of my concerns is, you know, we're knowing that estimated water losses, you know, 31 to 49%. Do we have anything coming up before sort of we move over to the Southern Waters to, you know, what else is in our work program to try and mitigate some of those water losses? Do we have anything else as part of our work program that might reduce those losses?
So we have our regular renewal side program. So that's replacing water mains towards the end of life. Also through, and maybe Josh can speak to this better than I can, but through the regular work of the operations team, there's a sort of a cyclic leak detection program, in which they walk around listening for leakage. We monitor the data that we've got in terms of the water production, in terms of network meters spread around, so we can target areas that have high water usage or higher water throughput.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Councillor Hopkins.
Just a point of clarification. I wasn't particularly advocating bringing the LTP funding forward. I simply wanted to establish that we could do so if we chose, because originally our LTP, the original LTP, admittedly not accepted by DIA, proposed 4 million expenditure on metering and 27, 28, 28, 29 and 29, 30. And we did push it back largely for reasons of budgetary and reasons related to the vote we came up with. Yeah, so I'm not champing at the bit to do it early. I just I think we need to know that we have that discretionary
Understood.
opportunity should we choose to take it.
Councillor McCone.
Yeah, Paul, I presume this is on demand systems that won't affect the rural water schemes that are restrictors. So,
Yeah, correct.
yeah. And the second part of that, I've actually got the opposite view to what's been said. If you reduce your operational costs, therefore it gives you more cash to actually fix stuff. And I totally get where you're coming from, and I totally agree with the thought process. But have we rung the neighbouring or talked to our neighbouring districts that we're now going to be in partnership with water to find out where they are at and actually, well, form a plan or form a system? Because to me, this is right up in front and centre that needs to be done with the consultation, and so we're all working together rather than putting something in that's going to cost us a fortune and not actually work.
Yep. So I agree that this is a top priority, and the savings, water savings that are possible through metering are well documented across New Zealand and across the world, actually. In terms of where we are with Southern Waters, it's very, very early days, and we haven't yet had an operational meeting with the Southern Waters partners. I believe that those meetings will start to happen over the next few months, and this is one of the topics that is something that I want to talk about. I guess just one thing around the procurement. Many of the suppliers had tiers for the costs, so the more you purchased, essentially, the lower the unit costs. So the economies of scale here are really clear to see.
Thank you, Matt Helvendale.
Just notice motion that we'll move the recommendation, but just wanted to also say that as of 14th of April in our meeting, then I think it's when we actually approve the documentation to join Southern Water. So we can't sort of expect staff to be going off having these conversations until we've actually done the formalities sitting in behind it. So while we've voted to join, and now we have had that accepted by all the councils involved, when we've got those documentation conversations underway, then the formal, the actual work can start. So just putting that rider in there, we can't expect the world from staff if we haven't quite got there yet. And just want to remove the recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Does anyone want to speak to that? No. Look, I share the concerns about the sequencing and the timing around Southern Waters and those sorts of things, but we have to trust that we're working with the entity to ensure the best for outcomes for our communities. And we're just going to have a little bit of patience around the timing to come back. But I don't think there's any question about the benefits that this sort of technology can bring. But the whole point of us coming together with other regions is that we can get some economy of scale. And I think this is certainly the way forward. So thanks very much for all the work that you've done and for bringing this paper forward.
Before we go into public excluded, I wonder if I could ask, if roading is one of the matters to be addressed and considered by this committee, and if so, could I request that at our next meeting we have somebody from roading? I have some questions about things that I'm seeing in the roading network that I would like at least to be canvassed and further examined. So is it possible to actually bring somebody who can specifically give us information about roading expenditure and roading priorities, please.
Councillor Hopkins, look, if you could bring those concerns through to me, I'm more than happy to bring that forward to our planning meeting and have that discussion with the team. But we are also trying to address specific items that we can move forward at the same time. But yeah, absolutely. I think we have the planning coming up to us very, very soon on the roading matter. So yeah. Mayor Tavender.
I was going to say, I think that the best way of approaching that would be just to contact your chair directly to discuss, because the agenda is set between the chair and staff and what's coming up. So I think that's the best way to proceed with that.
All right, if we can move into public excluded, can I have a mover? John, Councillor McCain, Councillor Linwood, thank you.